nobody like this. You ain't seen nobody like this. You hear my sound all over town singing. Whoa. You ain't seen nobody like this. You ain't seen nobody like this. You hear my sound all over town singing. Whoa. I think there's something in the water. If you wanna take a sip, but be careful what you wish for. The faint of heart can't handle it. Everybody wants a piece of someone else's prize, but it ain't free, it don't come cheap. Only the strongest will survive. You ain't seen nobody like this.
Good evening and welcome to San Antonio Soccer Roundtable. My name is Harry, and joining me today is my good friend, although in about 48 hours from now, we will not be friends, as we'll be going head to head from down in the valley, Edson, and also from the Striker, Texas. How are you doing, my friend?
Harry, it's a pleasure to be on your show once again after a while.
We didn't have you last year. We subbed in Ray for her, and Ray reached out, but unfortunately he has to work tonight. So I was glad to reach out to you and talk to you about RGV, because it's been an interesting offseason. We'll say.
Yeah, I mean that's one way you can say it. I think I've mentioned it before on Twitter, mentioned it before on my articles for the Striker. That after what happened last season with RGV doing the rebuild, becoming independent, finally after how many years of being under the Dynamo, it seemed like it was starting to build to some greatness. Make it to the playoffs. You'll make it to the Western Conference semifinal. We get trashed by you guys. Yeah, but we get trashed by you guys at Toyota Field. And then all of a sudden it's just radio silence for multiple weeks. Yeah, months. And the offseason started to move for the rest of the USL. And you started, seeing all these players that were key part of RGV last season, move on to other clubs. For example, Elvis Amo to Colorado Springs, Babu Karjai to Phoenix Rising, Carter Manley to you guys to San Antonio.
Annual transfer.
There's always one.
Always.
So then there was nothing announced. RGV did not announce any renewals. RGV didn't announce any actual transfers or roster moves at all. So a lot of the fans who were probably expecting to finally see some consistency from year to year, including myself, we were like, what's going on here? Even Jacob, for a while, he was probably thinking like this team is going to fold or something. But it was later on, I think it was around, was it February?
Yeah, towards the end of February is when RGV woke back up. Yeah,
they started making all these announcements, and it was moves that I'm going to say they weren't shocking the USL, to be honest. I think the only one was Gringo Torres.
Came from Colorado Springs.
Yeah. But other than that, it was, I guess, just trying to build a foundation. And Wilmer was actually asked in that training before the season opener, he was asked about that particular reason why there was a lot of turnover. And he said that, honestly, to him, he felt like it, as a technical director, he felt like it was the right move to build a squad that fit his needs, rather than pretty much a mash bin of parts, that he's going to try and make it build together, because that's what it was. That's what RGV was last year.
All right.
It was a team that was built in 14 days. with players that he himself admitted he did not know what their characteristics were, and he just pretty much made them work into one cohesive unit. And he felt that now with this roster, he felt like he had a lot more input, a lot more research done on the players that he got, that felt like it would likely mold better into the system in the long term.
I think what struck me is it wasn't only RGV fans that were worried. San Antonio fans, I know some fans in Colorado Springs, Phoenix, it became a issue of, outside of the banter between San Antonio fans and RGV fans, we both want each team to do well. We both want each team to be sticking around and showing signs of improvement and building the game, because I think for both communities, that's what we're needing. And San Antonio has its own issues, some of them not that far off from RGV, but RGV just took it to a completely different level this year, where even during the Dynamo years, I don't think they were that quiet. And it got to the point where I was reaching out to you. I was like, hey, is there something going on? And you're like, no, it's in the works. And I know Wilmer was, out in Europe scouting, vacation, that type of stuff. So to me, I guess I don't know if you know this or if you can say it. I know San Antonio FC has started signing some players to multi-year deals, and I think you're seeing that trend, not only with San Antonio, but also throughout the league. With Wilmer being able to get more eyes, be able to mold his team the way he wants it to do it as the technical director, do you know if some of the players are signed more long-term, or, are they the one and done?
I don't even know one or the other, because with the press releases that RGV sends, they don't mention specifics like how much, like if it was a transfer, like the player they bought, they don't mention what the terms were. They don't mention how much he was bought for. They call it that's just the club rules, to not disclose that information, and even with this, if it's in a 1 year or a multi-year either. So, but that's Wilmer. Wilmer, I mentioned before, he likes keeping everything close to his chest. He even said it in that press conference. He said that he would rather, keep things quiet and the noise be made out on the field rather than to the presses or to in social media. I don't necessarily agree, because keeping fans informed keeps up momentum, keeps them, informs them even more of like what they can expect, especially when you've got front office trying to sell season tickets.
Correct. That's the issue that we're talking about. It's not so much. It's the build on from the previous year to the new year. And you guys had good success. We had success, and San Antonio FC is trying to build on it. RGV, I think that you have to question, did they really build on it, or are they hitting the reset button again this year?
Reset button. I mean, that's basically what it is. You lost minimum 70% of your roster from last year to this year. And a lot of them, key players that ended up performing well, like we mentioned, Elvis Amo, Rodrigo Lopez, Juan Carlos Azócar, these players that were some of the best statistics wise, Adrian Arturo Dispe, the center back, these were some of the best performing players in the squad. And, for X or Y reason, they let him go. So now you're building a club, with players that I think fit Wilmer Cabrera's style a little bit more, but you lose all that chemistry. So you're basically starting from scratch. You're basically, all these players have to get used to playing against, with each other. After the home opener, what struck me as odd was that Jesus Vasquez, the center back, formerly from LA Galaxy 2, and he's now the captain of RGV. He made a comment in that after the game, he said that that back line of Malasevich, Jesus Vasquez, Wehebakwe, and Robert Coronado had never played a minute with each other, including off season.
But you guys, well, I know you guys had an off season, but you wouldn't have known it because there wasn't, San Antonio will, list, I think they played 4 games this year, one against Dallas, which was basically, they got rolled. They started camp. That was right at the time that we had the deep freeze here in South Texas. So, I'm assuming practice was very limited. Then the following weekend, they went up to Dallas, and Dallas at that point was 2 weeks away from starting their season. So, they were in form. It was a nice tune-up. Came home, played Dynamo 2, played Tulsa at home, and then to me, in what I think shows a little bit of lack of respect if it wasn't communicated, but basically played the academy team, in the final week against El Paso, who played their first team and got rolled. So, but RGV, I think we only heard one friendly, and I don't even know
one
what the
official
results.
Yeah,
and that was against Dynamo 2, right?
Correct. They did play from a couple of sources. They played UTRGV at HGV Park. They played Austin FC's reserves. They played Houston Dynamo 2, and they played Houston Baptist University. Those were the 4 preseason games that I heard that RGV played in the off season. But like I said before, RGV never mentioned anything about those games publicly. They never mentioned anything about results or what the starting lineups were.
Mm-hmm.
But it all goes back to Wilmer Cabrera's style of preparing the club. Making sure that nobody outside knows, kind of let them work in peace, and just displayed once you really have to.
And Robert made the comment, San Antonio FC never played a consistent lineup all preseason. That's true and not true. And this goes back to Edson's first point. Their starting back line played pretty much, Manley, Garcia, and Mitchell Tainer played all 3. The goalies rotated, the people in front of them rotated. But the back line, San Antonio FC, you could tell that was the 3 starters. Now, who was starting elsewhere, that that was left to be a mystery. And what was odd is Patino played all the preseason games, but unfortunately hasn't been fit to play in the regular season, so he must have sustained a knock. So, and I know you guys, I think for the first time, there was 2 firsts that I think that took place this year. Number 1, San Antonio FC and RGV did not play a preseason friendly for it here, and I'm wondering if it had to do with the results of last year's preseason friendly, where let's just leave it. It wasn't friendly at all, especially among the coaches from all reports. Mm-hmm. And then number 2, the other was Ollie Wright made the trip from San Antonio down to RGV. Unfortunately, as soon as he got there, he had a lower leg injury. I think on Instagram,
he broke his second metatarsal in that preseason game against Austin FC.
So he's out. He's out for a little while here. I know for San Antonio, they are also dealing with some injuries as well. Patino is still questionable. Beckford is still questionable, and they've announced Mane, the signing from Austin FC, who announced that he had shoulder surgery and he's out for at least 12 weeks, and then he'll be reevaluated again. So offensively, San Antonio is still a little bit challenged for that here. RGV, and I know you mentioned, on Wilmer, the technical director doesn't like to give injuries out. Do you expect changes to the lineup for RGV? I noticed last game on Wednesday, it was Miller in the goal, not Tyler Derrick. And then you'll have to help me with the names. Milicic?
Yeah, Milicevic,
Vasquez, Nodarce, Mueller, Yakaza, Torres, Martinez, Ruiz, Frank Lopez, former San Antonio FC, player, and Herrera. Do you anticipate that to be the starting lineup, or do you anticipate some changes?
I expect it to be a similar starting lineup as we saw against Orange County SC. Muller's probably going to continue being on goal. I haven't been able to confirm it, but it might be that Tyler Derrick may have gotten a knock, and maybe that's why Colin Miller has been starting. So, like I said, don't quote me on that. I have yet to confirm that, but it's just strange that Wilmer isn't the guy to rotate goalkeepers, just for rotating sake. And honestly, he didn't do. Oakland Roots didn't reach him. Like, they didn't do a lot of opportunities on him, but he didn't look bad. He hasn't looked bad. So the only reason I can think of that Miller's been starting is maybe Tyler Derrick got a knock. The back four,
because he hasn't even been on the bench either.
No, exactly. You've had Javier Garcia on the bench, the local guy from Mission, Texas. Back four, I expect it to be Jonathan Ricketts. We'll probably see Jesus Vasquez once again. Probably see Nadars, because remember that Wehab Akwe suffered a knock on the game against Orange County SC. Like I said, I haven't heard anything as to if he's going to be fully fit by Sunday. But I did see that Akwe was on the bench on Wednesday. But I think it might have more to do with trying to make sure that they actually have make it to at least five substitutes on the bench.
AJ, knock is an injury for that here. Thank you for turning in, AJ. My son.
And yeah, so we'll probably see Nadars again, and Robert Coronado out there in the left back position. I think it's also going to be a 4-3-3. We'll continue to see Juan Pablo Torres. We'll continue to see Chelo Martinez and Emilio Icaza. And up on top, Ricky Reese will stay, Frank Lopez, and we'll see Dylan Borjak once again on the starting 11. So I don't think, and it has a lot more to do with how limited we are in depth because of all these injuries, and of course, something going on with Adolfo Hernandez, who's on a loan from Pumas Tabasco from Liga MX Expansión. There you go.
Now, going off FOTMob, they said RGV against Orange County ran a 3-5-2, but against the Galaxy it was a 4-3-3. Do you anticipate going back more to the 3-5-2, kind of what
it's always
with what San Antonio does?
It's always been a 4-3-3.
Oh, 4-3-3. Okay, so
yeah, it's always been a 4-3-3 in the game against Oakland, in the game against Orange County, and against LA Galaxy too. Now, in the game, you'll probably see some variations. I know against Oakland, there were moments that you would see a 4-1-4-1 because they had the ball so much. But other than that, it just stays at a simple 4-3-3 for most of the game.
And Tracy, yes, Rafa will be going live for the Harlan versus Del Rio game. For that, he is at the stadium doing the high school coverage. And like I said here, obviously I'm doing the show here with Edson, but yes, he will, on the page, it will also have the coverage for that here. And so to me, the big loss for it here, but I think listening to you, I forgot his name. He went to Rodrigo Lopez, who went back to Sacramento. But you guys brought in Juan Torres for that here, as he kind of filled that role for Lopez.
They're two different styles. I think Rodrigo Lopez was that box-to-box midfielder. Just like he could help out on the attack, he could also help out defensively. Juan Pablo Torres, to me, and the rest of the, like Isidro Martinez and Emilio Icaza, they seem to be a lot more attack-oriented. However, Isidro Martinez can play central defensive midfielder if needed. For example, if the other team has more possession of the ball, he'll lock down to being a central defensive midfielder. However, when he was with RGV back in 2020, 2019, it was a lot more customary to use a 2 defensive midfielder lineup. Not necessary. I'm not sure how well Isidro Martinez would hold on as being the lone central defensive midfielder, because Emilio Icaza and Juan Pablo Torres tend to be a lot more offensive oriented. So to answer your question, I really don't think there is a comparison, and I really do think that Rodrigo has got to be the biggest loss. I think the more direct comparison would have been Rodrigo and El Gringo Torres, Juan Francisco Torres. But unfortunately, like I mentioned, he's injured. So,
and I did verify Rafa does have the video at Gustafson of the Harlan and Del Rio. I just want to make sure that I didn't mess him up by doing our show as well here for that here. But yes, so Tracy, if you do switch over to Facebook, you can watch either show, either ours or the Harlan match for that here. So season-wise, San Antonio's off to record-wise a good start. I think if you watch the performance, get a feel from the fan base, they're happy with the 2 wins, but not happy with the results so far. RGV's played 3 games. They beat the Roots. In my opinion, took a tough loss against the champs in Orange County with the last second goal from formidable player Okoli. And then unfortunately had a midweek game against Los Dos, LA Galaxy, gave up a goal right before halftime, and unfortunately just wasn't able to get anything on frame or on through there. I know you guys had 10 shots, but to me I didn't think RGV challenged as well as they did against Orange County, where you guys had a little bit more chances. So right now you guys set 1 win, 2 losses, 3 points, where San Antonio's played 2, has the 2 wins at 6 points here. So your thoughts on the early season so far for RGV?
Defensively, they look okay. I think besides the fact that they hadn't played together for a while, or if ever, I think they looked really organized for the most part. They have limited, for example, in the first half against Orange County, they limited Orange County to just 2 shots and only 1 on target. In total, I think it was 3 shots for the game against Oakland Roots. And in this game against LA Galaxy 2, that's where they looked a little bit more questionable. I have a feeling that, besides having Jesus Vasquez, I think Way in the center back position has brought in some good organization, some good leadership, coordination, to this defensive line. Obviously, in the second half against Orange County, in the 54th minute, you're down a man, because of Emilio getting a second yellow,
which was reversed.
Yes, good. It was a good decision to reverse it, to be honest. But after that, the Toros kind of held on for a while. But the problem is when you give Shanugo Okoli too much space, to receive and be able to deflect a ball like in a corner kick, he's gonna be lethal. And it's just minor little details that need to be fixed defensively. So I'm not at all too worried. I'm worried about depth. Don't get me wrong. But as far as the lineup is concerned, without Eric Pimentel, I think we should be fine for this season. Offensively, though, I think there's a lot of miscommunication and uncoordination between the wingers and Frank Lopez. Bringing in Duilio Herrera, the 17-year-old, to LA Galaxy 2, obviously Duilio is very green, at the professional level. So he was pretty much eaten alive. He really didn't do much. Once you bring in Dylan Borjak, into the game, that's when RGV started having all these opportunities that were starting to break down the LA Galaxy 2 defense. But the coordination just isn't there. The crosses, there were some crosses by Ricky Reese that had some good intentions, but he was placing it in the far post, but Frank Lopez or whoever was inside the box was trying to go towards the near post, right? So there's that miscommunication that really hasn't helped, with clear opportunities, from all these crosses, and also the opportunities that you have to make the shots. Well, they're not on target. In this game, against Oakland, you only had one, which was the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Against Orange County, you only had one on target, which was the goal. On this one, you had 2 shots on target, and you didn't score any of them. So they've really got to work on improving that shot accuracy for the rest of the season if they want to at least equalize what the team did last season. Because at the end of the day, I think fans, they're going to be comparing to what they did last season.
Yes.
So especially, with when you're trying to convince that this is a new team, this is a new era, this is going to be the future of a club that we can control, this is going to be the next best thing. Oh, not to that point, but you get what I'm saying, and then when you start going, on a downhill from 1 year to 1 year, it's like, unfortunately, a lot of fans here in the Rio Grande Valley, they don't have the patience. They don't have the mentality that a lot of fans within the United States have of supporting local soccer. They want a winning team. They want a fun team. And if you don't bring them any of that, they're not going to support the Toros. Even if it's your local soccer team, they're not going to support it because they don't win. Just look at tomorrow. I'm pretty sure HEB Park is going to be filled with, a lot of soccer fans who are going to watch Tigres, from Liga MX.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of soccer fans here in the Valley. Why aren't they supporting the Toros? Because of all these years. And it's going to be something that is going to take a long time. A reputation is going to take a long time to shake. And
that goes back to the start of the conversation where I understand, hey, there's the tactical side of it, but then there's the other side of building that fan base, of building, helping marketing, helping the sales team to be able to do. And that it's a give and take. And San Antonio struggles with it, even on our side here, our attendance is down from what it used to be. Just it's a struggle. And to me, that's why, and I expressed it to you personally, that was my biggest frustration with RGV is you guys finally got your independence. You finally showed, hey, we can put together a quality product on the pitch. And then, then the ball was dropped. And that's the thing that I struggle with RGV, because you don't see that with the Vipers, at least from the distance. The Vipers don't go through those same struggles. Now, you're obviously local in the area. You may have a different view. And I know it's basketball, which is a little bit different. But to me, that was the disappointment from there. So the odd thing about this match is it is a CopaTejas match, but it does not count for the standings here because there's only 3 matches. In CopaTejas, or they're only counting 2 matches because both RGV and San Antonio, RGV and San Antonio play El Paso twice, so to keep it nice and even for everybody, which is the right thing to do. The first match, per the rules of CopaTejas, does not count for that here. Now, I will still, and I say it doesn't count for the CopaTejas trophy, but in the Shield Cup, it does count. So there's still a little bit of CopaTejas weight behind it. But the South Texas Derby for that here, the Stampede, Crocketeers, like I said here, lots of fun and banter for it here. I wish it wasn't a Sunday 6:30 match for that here. Your thoughts on number one, kind of the attendance that's going to be coming in Sunday evenings. And I hate to say it's part of the reasons what, outside of going down and back, I have to work. There's also U.S. men's national team game. I know NASCAR's big in the area. There's a NASCAR race on that day. Mexico also plays. I don't know if they play before or after along those lines for that here. So there's going to be a lot of competition for people to attend the game. What's your kind of views on, I know the Stampede will be there in full force, but kind of, the atmosphere game day going into that match, for that here, what's kind of your feelings heading into this first edition of San Antonio RGV?
I do feel like the attendance is going to suffer because I think obviously you got the Mexican national team, like you mentioned, all these factors that you mentioned, but also, the 2 losses that they've had on the road. I feel like that is going to kind of affect negatively some of the more casual fan base from RGV that were starting to come back, and to try to give up the opportunity to the team. Other than that, in the game against Stokeland, it was a really good atmosphere. The fans themselves were, they were chanting, so pushing the team towards victory. It obviously helps, that RGV was controlling the match, and, the fans continue to push, they continue to support. And I really think that, like I said, numbers are going to go down because it's the Mexican national team, game that'll be occurring. A little bit of the USMNT as well. We do have some USMNT fans here, but it's mostly Mexico.
That's even here in San Antonio, to be fair, as well. So.
Yeah. So, but I think for the fans that are going to go to the stadium, I think they're going to be creating a lot of noise, in and of itself. So I think it's going to be a decent atmosphere if there are any San Antonio fans that'll be making the trip.
I know of a few, but it's not. I'm still 50-50 if I'm going to go. I'm leaning not going, but it'll probably be one of those, hey, how do I feel? Just for the fact I have to be at work Monday morning early. And going down and back, it's a 6:30. Figure get out 8:30. Obviously, if you're traveling down there, you're gonna say hello to the players because that's the benefit of going to away matches. Typically, you get a little bit more interaction from the players for that here. And not saying that you don't get interaction at Toyota Field, but the players typically will go out of their way to come over and say hi for that here. But it's getting back at 1:30ish for that here. So we'll see here. Robert's trying to encourage me to go. I've already asked, hey, if I go, does Robert want to go? And he said, yeah. So we will see. And I know AJ wants to go too. So I may make it, but I'm not committing as of yet. So to me, this match is going to come down to who controls the midfield. SAFC PC is healthy. Now he gets beat up every game. Not on the injury list, but PC Abu in the back. How do you think? Because that always seems to be the key for these matches. In my opinion, is the midfield, because I think both defenses are solid on the back line. I think both defenses have good goalies, or both teams have good goalies. Forwards, I think both of them still struggle a little bit on finishing. With that, it's not a strength of either team at this point. I do like our odds better if Patino is in. But your thoughts on the matchup of the midfielders? I think to me the one I'm interested to see is David Larrera, who had in my opinion, the goal of the week. I know he didn't win it somehow, or I don't believe he won it for that here. But your thoughts on the midfield?
I think the midfield, for the most part, has done their job. Kind of, if I were to give them like a grade, like in the school year, probably be like a 70, 75. Like
Solid
they're not,
C.
it's not outstanding, but they're decent, However, they did have a lot of issues against LA Galaxy too. They uncharacteristically lost the midfield in the first half. And, it doesn't help that with Duilio Herrera not creating any opportunities, not taking some attention away from the outside back to not move up as freely. They kind of lost the midfield. It was mostly controlled by LA Galaxy too. Once you bring in someone like Dylan Borjak that caught their attention to not move up as really as much, it seems like San Antonio had, RGV had a better control of that midfield. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest, to me, I kind of disagree with the midfield. I think it's going to be the strikers. Who's going to be who's going to be finishing. And honestly, from what I can say, overall, if you look at it line by line, San Antonio has a lot more experience at this time. You look at the goalkeeper line, Colin Miller versus Christian Bonilla.
Mm-hmm.
Bonilla is, what is he? He's a Colombian national team for a couple of times, right?
Yeah, started in the Olympics for him. I forget what.
And then in the back line, you've got, players from, like, for example, Jonathan Ricketts from USL League One, Wehab Akwe from Loudoun United, Jesus Vasquez from LA Galaxy too. And then obviously Robert Coronado coming in from RGVFC, used to be with the Toros when they were under the Houston Dynamo. And you look at the experience that San Antonio has.
Yeah, Mitchell Tainel, who has 150. That last game was his 150th game in USL. Carter Manley, that spent multiple years down in RGV. Fabian Garcia has time with the Bold and other clubs professionally, and this year they this week they re-signed Kamiri for that here. So we're interested to see if he gets on the pitch and who possibly gets bumped, or if they're going to roll with those three. But yeah, the back line, like I said, I do think San Antonio does have, at least experience-wise, a little bit more of an edge. What's interesting is San Antonio hasn't been pressing as much this year. And
RGV has. RGV loves the high press. So that and I know from what we saw last playoff game, the matchup between both of us, when San Antonio played that high press, RGV couldn't do anything.
Right.
They became desperate, and they started making all these mistakes and giving away the ball really, really easily. So that could be something that RGV. But then on the flip side, when RGV had the dominance of the high pressure, San Antonio looked very shaky as well. So going back, I think overall, I think San Antonio does have the advantage overall going into this match to me. And if we're ready to give predictions, I'm willing to say that RGV is going to lose this match. And I want to be wrong. But I think from what I've seen so far,
is most likely. I don't think San Antonio loses, but the San Antonio has never started 3-0 in their entire history. So this is an opportunity for them to do that. RGV.
Neither did RGV last season, and we did end up doing so. But I think another thing is you have to take into consideration the fatigue.
Yes, you guys.
There was no rotation. There was very little rotation from the squad in this past week. You had 3 games in 9 days that you're going to have.
And you guys don't have San Antonio doesn't have a lot of depth even now, which is one of the puzzling things for us. You guys are also in that kind of same situation, right? I know you have people on the bench, but they're unproven or young kids, right?
Pretty much. Like, and the thing is like your experienced players are injured. So what good does it have?
Right.
So I think overall, I mean, nobody expects a lot of injuries so early in the season. So that really is a question of what's going on with the trainings that's causing these players to get injured. And, was there a lack of preparation overall for these kind of circumstances, especially when now you got to add the load of the US Open Cup. So obviously I'm not at this point, I'm not yet there yet to start bashing the team. It's just, it's at this
It's
point,
still early.
It's still early. There's still a lot of season to go to, but it's good to start asking these questions and to kind of let people know, like, hey, this is what's really going on. And you gotta be honest with the fans, because the fans, they're gonna eventually realize when you're lying to them, or you're trying to you're trying to, what's the word I'm looking for? Just lie to them.
Trying to pull the wool over their head.
Yeah.
So I know in my predictions, I said 2-0 San Antonio for that here. I do think San Antonio gets the win. Just because I've been to these matches and I know how tight it is. It would not shock me if it was a draw, like a 0-0 or 1-1 draw, just for the fact playing at HEB Park, especially if the wind is up, it is challenging. It's a great thing here. Now, there is one topic that I want to get to for here. It does deal with CopaTejas. El Paso. Your thoughts on El Paso start? 0-3, giving up goals left and right. I think the Lights just scored again for that here. But your thoughts on El Paso, and the defending CopaTejas champs are off to a slow start.
I mentioned it a couple of times in in the Striker Tejas. Whenever we touch upon the subject of El Paso Locomotive. To me, El Paso Locomotive is going through a drastic change in direction. You've got two completely different play styles under Mark Lowry and under Hutchinson now. It's completely different. And I lived through it with Tigres. Obviously you got to keeping proportions, right? But it was a similar move. You had Ricardo Ferretti, who was a coach that he always valued defense over offense. He always valued organization. He always valued possession of the ball. A lot of fans, including myself, weren't really happy because you've got all these great players like Gignac, Florian Thauvin, Jurgen Damm at the time, that Julian Quinones that tend to be a lot more offensive, but you couldn't see their potential because it was a slow moving team. Yeah, it brought results. We made it to the Club World Cup final but the fans really weren't 100% happy. It just wasn't entertaining, and it wasn't living up to the potential of what they wanted to see, from the level of the teams. You don't renew him, he leaves. You bring in Piojo Herrera. Miguel Herrera is very offensive. He's a coach that, he values offense and flair over defensive organization. What happened in the first season? Yeah, they scored a lot of goals. They also got scored on a lot. And it was very entertaining to watch, but it wasn't like some results weren't there. They made it to the playoffs, and they made it to the semifinal. Yes, but you could tell that there was something that was off about this team that still needed to be worked on, and that was defensively. With El Paso, I say all of this because with the Paso Locomotive, I see the same thing. I see players that have been used to Mark Lowry's system for so long that it's hard to make them forget that and switch on to something completely different from one day to the next. And I saw the same thing with the fact that they go up to attack crazily, without any organization. They leave themselves self-exposed out there in the back. biggest two examples were one of the goals against Sacramento Republic and another one against Las Vegas Lights. Completely exposed, where you're left with a 2v1 situation against the keeper. So what I'm trying to say is, I think El Paso fans have to be very patient. The results are not going to be coming in, immediately. The players need to get used to this new system. Maybe Hutchinson is going to need one other offseason to bring in more players that actually fit his style of play and mold that into a lot more personalized of what he wants, rather than the remnants of what Mark Lowry left before he left to Indy 11. So I think El Paso is going to suffer this season. They might get better towards the end of the season as they get more used to it. It might, but it could be be too late to make it to the playoffs or even to challenge CopaTejas. But I think next season is when I think the rest of the USL might have to be careful, because El Paso is going to be one fun team to watch. If we want to keep with that parallel between them and Tigres.
They're entertaining to watch even this year. My concern is because they play kind of what RGV plays. They play, that pressing. But San Antonio struggles on narrow pitches and in a baseball stadium playing that pressing style, because there's not that space that you typically want, like at HEB Park and Toyota Field. So to me, I kind of question that. The other thing here, and I know seriously Loco, was already, putting out here. I know Evan Newton's off to a rough start, but those goals aren't on him. There's a couple of them where he's out of position because as you discussed, they're trying to learn a new system. Even he's trying to learn a new system. So he is a top-notch goalkeeper. However, he has been, up in MLS, hasn't played a whole lot, and then to go and switch to more of a sweeper keeper style. So to me, I kind of question how they, how the team put together. And like you, I do think this is going to be a 2-year kind of rebuild before El Paso gets back to where El Paso needs to be, especially in the West, where it's a loaded West. You go down the list. There's really not any weak teams. Monterey Bay's got a lot better defensively. They've tightened it up after that first half against Phoenix. The Roots you guys played are very defensively. Orange County, solid. New Mexico has found a little bit more in their offense. Colorado Springs, Sacramento, Orange County, Phoenix are all going to be tough outs. And the lights are showing, hey, even though they're a hybrid team, I guess you would say, they've got better talent this year. They seem to be a little bit more organized. Now, do I think they'll be able to win every game? No, but I don't think there's, there used to be matches where you could kind of roll out your B side and you could still probably walk away with 3 points. This year, I don't think that's the case. I think, from 1 through 13, you've got to be playing. You got to be playing on. You got to have luck on your side, or you might be walking out with a loss. But so you think San Antonio is going to win? I've got San Antonio 2-0. Any final thoughts? I know you're going to be traveling up to the Austin area this week to kind of catch your. I don't know if it's your first NASCAR race, at COTA, but
it's actually my second. I went last year, but it was rained out.
Yeah, it was horrible last year. But this year it's supposed to be perfect. What, mid 80s and
yes, sunny weather.
I was watching the practice and. It was kind of cool to see them race in the rain last year, but it was just like, okay, hey, yeah, they're not able to do what they want to do. So I will probably tape that and, I don't know if I'll watch it live, but that'll be pretty exciting.
Yeah, and it's going to be and I'm taking my sister, so it's going to be her first experience at a NASCAR race. But hopefully it'll be fun. But I think my final thoughts, I think it definitely, if there's one thing that we need to learn as a rivalry, and I think we've done a decent job of maintaining some sort of civility. There's always going to be some few rotten apples here and there on both sides, sadly, from what we've heard. But I think overall, we're pretty chill fan base with each other. It's one of those things that, we said, 90 minutes we're enemies, but the rest of the time we can hang out and drink some beers and, talk soccer, and give our points of view. And I think this needs to continue. Don't listen to, or I don't want to say don't pay attention. Yes, pay attention to those that are trying to ruin the party per se, like what happened in Orange County. It was an isolated incident, yeah, but sadly it made the RGV fan base kind of look bad, or that's the intent of some fans that they wanted to. But I think overall, this is where the good fans have to stand up and put an end to that kind of situation. It's a beautiful rivalry that's been brewing for a couple of years here between San Antonio and the Rio Grande Valley. Let's keep it that way. And hopefully the fireworks stay on the pitch and not off it.
And not between the coaches. But no, to me, like I said here, we've seen a couple of instances recently, the one in Liga MX, which was just on a completely different level. There's been a couple of incidents, where, the Orange County, there's, you've heard of, I've heard of a couple other odds and ends there, but yeah, it's, to me, like I said, that's why I enjoy this. That's why I created, the little podcast guide, just, so we can all get our voices out. Cause to be honest with you, we all support our clubs. We want our clubs to do well. But let's be honest. And we had a prime example just up the road, the Austin Bold. None of our teams are guaranteed tomorrow. Unfortunately, this isn't, we don't have that deep history, and that's why you got to cherish it. I've already
even with deep history, it's still not guaranteed that you're going to be able to stay. In the chat for the Rochester Rhinos.
Well, the Rochester Rhinos are quote unquote back in the MLS Next Pro, but yeah, and completely rebrand, and yeah, but they carried over that history, but and you're starting to see cracks in England as well. You've seen some teams that have been here for decades and unfortunately are not. But Edson, I know you got to get going. Do want to appreciate your time. Like I said, it was a lot of fun catching up with you. As you mentioned here, hope both teams and traveling fans have fun. I know the Stampede's always open. Has a great tailgate. You'll catch some grief. I'll probably be wearing my Los Gatos Los Gatos Blancos shirt if I do make the trip down. I already got Robert that says he'll roll with me. I know the Czechs are planning on going down for that here, and there's always usually one or two others that are down in the valley that will make the trip. And but I know the Stampede throws on a fun tailgate, not as cool as ours, but hey, it's RGV, so it's always a step below San Antonio, but still above Austin.
Hey, by the way, I've always wondered what happened to that cat.
It's still in the stadium. Last I knew, it's around this. It's from my understanding, they have cats around the stadium for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where the cats go or along those lines, that I don't know. But it's year 6, and we finally have an identity. That San Antonio's embraced. That's not Spurs related. Johnny. We'll just toss that to you. It's not, has nothing to do with the Spurs. So, but Edson, thank you for your time. My final thought, to go with Edson's is, just be nice to each other. Also, if you're having any, mental issues, anything along those lines, my line's always open. I'm assuming Edson, if you're down in the valley, if you reached out to him, he would make time for you as well. National Suicide Hotline. Just like I said, if we're here to help each other out for that here. You may get some banter talking about soccer, but outside of soccer, we're all here to support each other both on and off the pitch. But thank you for tuning in, and what's life without goals? We're out.